We are at Anza Borrego Desert State Park, and we are trying out some of the sewing projects that I made for the van, including the insulated windows. So if you'd like to learn more about it, then please stay tuned. The first thing I want to say is every van is very different and the window sizes are different. So if you have a custom van, none of this may apply to you. And in fact, you can actually buy some shades that are already made for specific window types. I know that Sportsmobile makes window shades for the back windows, and they're $275 for the pair. So I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to see if I could make something and fill all the windows in the van so that when we are camping in the wintertime or even the summer, and we need darkness, then we've got everything we need. The material I've chosen is called Warm Window, and it is actually 4 layers of fabric, 2 insulated layers, kind of something that looks like aluminum foil, and then the back is this kind of white material. One of the things we discovered on this trip is that you can actually, where the manufacturer stitches their 4 layers together, you can actually see little pin pricks through the fabric. So if it's important for you to have a complete black curtain and not see any light at all, then I recommend on your fashion fabric, on whatever decorative fabric you use on the outside, you might consider applying some kind of iron-on or some kind of adhesive backed material that will add another layer to this sandwich. Making one of these is like making a large placemat. So if you sew at all, then you should be able to do it. But it does take some patience. It took me about 2 to 3 hours per panel to do the work. The first thing you have to do is figure out the size of your windows, obviously. But you also have to figure out how you're going to apply these. Our van has plastic that lines all of the windows, and so there's only one window where I could actually use magnets to stick it up against any kind of surface, kind of like those bug screens, skeeter beaters. The skeeter beaters use magnets, and so there's only one area, and that's the sliding door, where I was able to use magnets because I think that would probably be a preferred method of attachment. And that is this panel. And what I discovered was that I had to put a magnet about every 3 inches. I bought these at Home Depot, and then it will stick onto the sliding door on the metal part, because that's the only part of the van that doesn't have some kind of plastic or fabric around it. And that sticks really nicely. However, you may find that you have to remove it every time you go in and out of the door. So in some places you may be able to use magnets, and other places you may have to use Velcro, which is what I did. Now I had originally intended to use to measure the window and make it fit right into the window and put Velcro up there, adhesive back on the glass, and then sew on Velcro on the shade. But then I met Pam down at the beach one day, one of the viewers, and she showed me her shades and told me that the Velcro the adhesive back would come off in the heat through the windows. So I then decided to change the option here, and I have to go with Velcro. And the one thing I discovered with the Velcro that I had purchased 25 yards of Velcro. First of all, because originally I purchased this color because it was going to go into the window. Now I'm going to get some dark gray or black Velcro for this side, so it will blend in better with the window. Once you decide how you're going to attach these, then you can order the supplies you'll need, whether it's Velcro or magnets, fabric, that sort of thing. The fabric I got at Joann's Fabrics, and they're pretty much can be found everywhere. The Warm Window, this fabric is a bit expensive. I think the list price is around $37 a yard, but Joann's has sales all the time download their app and you can get a coupon. And so I used my 40% coupon to buy this, so it comes out to be closer to $20 per yard. Unfortunately, it's only 54 inches wide, and I needed as much as 5 feet, and I kind of skimped a little bit on the sides. So it's not quite as wide as it should be. I should have laid it out the other direction and just bought more yardage. So make sure you, check that situation really carefully. The fashion fabric that I chose was a quilting fabric because it comes 108 inches wide, I believe. And you'll need that kind of width on some of these pieces if you have wide windows like we do. And I cut this fashion fabric out first and used it as kind of a pattern or a template to make sure it was the right size for the window. So I would cut it out and then take it out to the van and then test the size. You'll probably want to cut it just a little bit wider or longer because stitching has a tendency to draw things together. So you may need an extra ½ inch or so to get the size just perfect. So just be aware of that. And then once I had the fashion fabric cut out, then I put it on top of the warm window fabric, which is the expensive stuff, and then cut that out. And then I took spray adhesive, and it's called basting spray, and then sprayed the fashion fabric to the insulated layer so that they wouldn't move around. Once you've done that, then you want to sew a basting stitch all the way around the perimeter of this large placemat. And that will kind of keep things, well, it'll help you in a couple of reasons. It'll help you sew on the seam binding, and it will then, you can take it back out to the van and make sure that it's the right size. The next thing you do is sew on the seam binding, and I'll insert some clips of that. And when you're doing that is when you're also going to want to put on some kind of a strap on each side. So I cut out 6-inch pieces of elastic and sewed on just a little bit of Velcro on each side. And this one's over here. And this will then allow you to roll the shade up like this. And so you can keep it secured, and yet that way you can leave it up all the time. You don't have to store this, which I really liked. What I have found already, we were parked somewhere where it was quite hot, and I lowered it down, and it was amazing how much heat was trapped by this product. They claim it'll block out 80% of the heat gain and 80% of the cold for nighttime use. So I'm really pleased with the product. Once you've put the seam binding on, that's when you will apply the Velcro, the loop side of the Velcro. I did it all the way around on 4 sides because I really wasn't sure how I was whether I was gonna need Velcro everywhere or just little spots of it. So I attached that everywhere, and so you'll sew that down, and then once you've done that, then I can't remember. One of the changes I'm going to make when we get home, I did this back panel as one solid piece, but obviously you can't open the door that way, so you'd have to remove it every time you wanted to open the door. So when I get home, I'm going to slice this down the middle and add more seam binding, so I have 2 pieces instead of 1 piece. And then I'll insert some elastic strips, so I have two strips per panel. And I think that'll make this much more efficient, and then I don't have to worry about storing it. I almost forgot that I also made a vent cover. And now I had already I only had like a few strips of the warm window left, like that wide. So I actually had to piece it together like a quilt. And the way I did this, because you've got this stupid button here that John hits his head on all the time, And so what I did there was the distance. I measured the distance from the knob to where I was going to secure it with Velcro, and then put a seam there. So put a seam there, and that way it slips right over the button. And then this then can go up here like this, and that keeps that nice and dark. So that was my solution for the vent, and I did not do anything in the bathroom, probably won't. The temperatures up here the last several nights have been in the low 40s, and the van was typically in the high 50s without using heat at all. We haven't used our propane heater yet. So I think it's working really well, especially in combination with the front insulated panel that I used to separate the cab from the back of the van. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. You probably could find someone in your area that would sew them for you if you wanted them to do that. Check with your dry cleaners, because they usually have seamstresses, and sometimes they have a tailor shop right next door. Check with them to see if that's something that they would do for you. You could take them all the materials, and then they just, whip it up, because they have the kind of machines that make it easy. I would also recommend that if you do this yourself, that you use the Microtex sharp needles on your sewing machine, because this is a lot of layers to go through, and I'm not sure about, some of that insulation material. It would probably dull a regular needle pretty quickly. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and let me know what you've used and how successful it's been. And thank you very much for watching.
Ja, det lå att besvimma här alltså. Kämpereklam. She's smiling at me. Don't you have any errands? Kiss me, I'll explain later.
Okay.
So,
there you go.
Being this tall and dark and handsome, I've got quite a confidence,